Hi, in this video let's talk about some possible cavalry unit in the total war Three Kingdoms, and historical information about the cavalries in the Three Kingdoms era and Han Dynasty. We will majorly focus on the Han Dynasty cavalry because, after all, the Three Kingdoms era is a civil war in the end of Han Dynasty. In the Han Dynasty, cavalries played an important part in the Chinese conflict against nomads. In the early Han Dynasty, the empire had a hard time fighting a nomadic tribe called Xiongnu, which been raiding northern Chinese settlements, especially those unprotected villages and towns for many years. In the early Han Dynasty, Xiongnu became a powerful tribal confederation and even an attempt to conquer the Chinese Empire. During the conflict, the Chinese strategists realized the key advantage of the nomadic army was their mobility. With a mobility advantage, they can choose when and where to fight. If they were defeated, they can still retreat with minor casualties. This makes the nomadic raiders and armies difficult to eliminate. And the best way to counter that advantage is to also have large number of light cavalries for both protecting settlements from nomadic raiders and chasing retreating or routing nomadic armies. So in early Han Dynasty, the imperial army put a lot of effort into developing the light cavalries in both quality and quantity. And it was a wise decision. The development of light cavalry turned the tide of the war. During the rule of Emperor Wu Di, the empire achieved decisive victory against Xiongnu. Many of the vassals of Xiongnu surrendered to the empire, and Xiongnu was no longer able to launch any major offensive against Han Dynasty. In 46 AD, because of natural disaster and internal conflict, Xiongnu divided into two tribes. The southern one became a vassal of Han Dynasty, while the northern one migrated to the west after defeated by the empire again. Besides playing an important role in the war against Xiongnu, light cavalry was also the spearhead of Han Dynasty's quick expansion west into the Western Territory, nowadays the Xinjiang province of China, east today's North Korea, and south today's South China and Vietnam. Majority of the early Han light cavalries are unarmored horse archers and mounted crossbowmen. The horse archers in the north were armed with recurved composite bows. In the south, however, the horse archers prefer simple homogeneous wooden bows because the maintenance of composite bows are significantly harder in South China due to the hot and humid climate. If they choose to wear armor, it will usually be light armor only protects their torso and thighs. And they also have a small amount of melee or short cavalries called tuqibing or tuji, literally assault cavalries. These short cavalries in the early Han Dynasty also only have light armors. The weapons they use are either short spears or a type of cavalry halberd. Stirrups was not yet invented in the early Han Dynasty, so it was hard to train a short cavalry, and the casualty rate of these short cavalries are much higher than the horse archer unit. So a lot of the short cavalries in early Han Dynasty were hired from friendly nomadic tribes. The most famous one of them was the mercenary cavalries hired from Wuhuan, which is a nomadic tribe who lived in the northeastern border of the empire. Or they will be recruited from the northern Chinese farming garrisons, where people are experienced in horse riding. Well, the farming garrison system is a militarized colony or type of recruitment system in Han Dynasty, which I will explain in future videos. In the Three Kingdoms era, the importance of the light cavalry slightly declined, and most of the warlords would prefer heavy infantry or heavy cavalry to be their guard or retinue unit. One of the most famous elite cavalry regiment in this era was still traditional horse archer unit. The name of the unit was 白马一从, the squires or guardsmen on the white horses. It was originally a bodyguard unit with less than 100 men, belonged to Gong Sun Zan, a warlord who controlled the northeastern border of the empire. In the late 180s AD, because of the internal conflict, most of the fortresses of the Great War were abandoned, which gave the nomads chance to raid northern Chinese villages and towns. In Wuhuan, the nomadic tribe that once provided mercenary cavalry to the Han Empire also revolted and occupied several northern Chinese cities. As a northern warlord, Gong Sun Zan had to protect his realm and people from a nomadic invasion. In the war against the nomads, Gong Sun Zan expanded the size of 白马一从 to around 3,000 men as a fast reaction force against nomadic raidings. All the soldiers ride white horses as a symbol of the unit, and the soldiers are the best archers and riders promoted from other units. A famous general in this era, Zhao Yun, was a soldier of Baima Yicong before he became a commander. This unit defeated multiple nomadic raids and took part in the suppression of Wuhuan rebellion. The nomads was terrified by Gongsun Zan and his cavalries. He was given the title by the nomads, the General of the White Horses. There was even a saying among the nomads, avoid the cavalries, own the white horses. In Han Dynasty and Three Kingdoms era, besides using color of their horses as a symbol of an elite unit, these cavalries sometimes had symbols attached on their armor. The most interesting one I found was a type of wing-shaped decoration made from wood and feather. Sounds kinda like the wings of Polish winged hussars, doesn't it? This type of decoration was never found by archaeologists, possibly because of these decorations are made from wood and feathers, which are extremely hard to preserve in the wet soil and due to the hot climate of China. Even in the tomb that was perfectly protected, for example the tomb of Qin Shi Huang and his terracotta army, all the wooden part of the weapons the statues once held are totally rotten. However, this type of decoration was seen in multiple documents in Han Dynasty and Three Kingdoms era. Sometimes it was mentioned as a type of flag. In the Three Kingdoms era, one of the famous units of Liu Bei and the kingdom of Shu Han probably used this type of flag as their unit symbol. The name of the unit was Bai'er. Bai'er means some kind of decorations made from fur or feathers, and the color was white. These warriors are hired from a nomadic tribe called Xiqiang, who lived in the western China. In fact, tribal and nomadic warriors are very common in the Battle of the Three Kingdoms, but that's the topic for another video. More common symbols are different types of cloaks on the shoulders and a cloth badge on the back. These two types of symbols were far more common than the wings because a lot of them can be found on the statues of cavalries made in his era, especially the badges. Historians believe they were given to the minor commanders to tell the soldiers who to follow on the battlefield, or given to some soldiers as an award like a medal, because not all of the cavalry statues wear this type of symbol, even if they were found in the same tomb and was set up like a proper cavalry formation. And according to the Han Dynasty documents, the name and other information of the soldier were written on the badge. In the middle of Han Dynasty, heavy cavalries finally became an important part of the imperial cavalries. A type of lance designated for the heavy cavalries was also invented. They were called shuo or shao, and they are usually around 3 to 4 meters long, which is much longer than the cavalry spears and halberd used in the early Han Dynasty. The spearhead of this type of weapon was also very long and heavy. Horse armor was also used in large number by the Chinese cavalry started from the middle of Han Dynasty. According to a list of weapons and armors of an arsenal of Han Dynasty found by archaeologists called 武库永始4年兵车级部, there was 5,330 sets of horse armor in a provincial arsenal in the Han Dynasty. A lot of them might be a type of light horse armor only protects the head and the chest of the horse. Though cataphract-style heavy horse armor did exist in this era, the number of them was very small. According to Cao Cao's own record of Battle of Guandu, a battle between Cao Cao and his rival Yuan Shao in the year 199 AD, the army of Yuan Shao had around 10,000 cavalries in the battle, but only 300 sets of heavy horse armor. Of course, this number is provided by Cao Cao's spies, so it might not be very accurate, but it's certain at least in the early Three Kingdoms era, cataphracts were still very rare in China. And after that, Cao Cao even adds, my army only had 10 sets of heavy horse armors, to show the gap of equipment quality between his army and Yuan Shao's army. Though Cao Cao managed to defeat Yuan Shao and his army in the Battle of Guandu, he also realized the importance of heavy cavalries and cataphracts in combat. So after the battle, Cao Cao formed his own cataphract unit, Hu Baoqi, the tiger and leopard cavalries, in Xuchang. According to the record of the Three Kingdoms, the commander of these units was Cao Chun. All of the soldiers of Hu Baoqi are experienced, capable to be commanders of 100 men in other units, and their equipment was also the best in Cao Cao's army. Though cataphracts became more and more popular throughout the Three Kingdoms era, Wei and Jin dynasties, there were other cataphract units formed in this era. Hubaoqi, or the Tiger and Leopard cavalries, was still remembered as the most famous heavy cavalry or the cataphract unit in this era. And interestingly, this unit was only mentioned in history, never appeared in the novel or other legends or dramas. In 204 AD Battle of Nanpi, Yuan Tan, son of Yuan Shao, was killed by the Tiger and Leopard cavalries. In the battle against nomadic tribe Wuhuan, in the Liaoxi region in 207 AD, the Tiger and Leopard cavalries also beheaded Ta Dun, the Chanyu, or the chief of Wuhuan. In 211 AD battle against Ma Chao, according to history, Cao Cao first sent his light infantry and cavalry to engage the army of Ma Chao. The battle took a long time, yet none of the two armies could defeat the other. Cao Cao then ordered Hu Baoqi to charge from the flank. The decisive charge of Hu Baoqi easily crushed the army of Ma Chao and ends the battle. And these are just some of the notable battles fought by Hu Baoqi. Han Dynasty and the Three Kingdoms era was the golden age of Chinese light cavalries, and the Three Kingdoms era was also the dawn of the golden age of heavy cavalries and cataphracts in China. Because the Chinese army in this era were fighting the armies that were well-disciplined and well-equipped, instead of the nomadic army that were poorly equipped but has very high mobility. The importance of heavy cavalries rise rapidly, while the importance of light cavalries declined. In the game, I believe the light cavalries and horse archers would still be the most important part of the cavalries in the game, or at least in the early game. Some warlords might have one or two heavy cavalry or even cataphract units from the start of the game, but to train more, they will have to have much higher tech level or control a high-tier military building. I wish Total War 3 Kingdoms could feature all these different types of cavalries and the famous elite units from this time period. In fact, in this video, I only talk about the cavalries in this era in an oversimplified way, and only two of the famous elite regiment, which I think is the most famous and symbolic among the type of cavalries in this era. There's surely a lot more I can talk about, but that will make this video too long. Is there anything interesting I missed? Please tell me and other viewers in the comment section. And tell me what would you like to see in the next video. See you next time.